Morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We will be starting with a Billabong song.
It all just feels like a dream to me, to find a school so true. And I know it's all in make-believe when I picture a school like you. The one thing that I learned from you is that I can make my dreams come true. Someday when I wake up to find memories of Billabong in my mind, imagine how that could be. Imagine how that could be. T for teamwork, E for empowerment, and for mutual respect. B for passion, I for integrity, A for accountability. Billabong High, Billabong High, Billabong High, you know you can fly. Billabong High, you can touch the sky. Billabong High, Billabong High. We have aspiration over ambition. In our minds we have rhythm, courage and humanity. What makes us Billabong High is we believe we can touch the sky. Billabong High, Billabong High, Billabong High, you know you can fly. Billabong High, you can touch the sky. Billabong High, Billabong High, Billabong High, you know you can fly. Billabong High, touch the...
A very good morning to everyone. I am Ananya Bajpai from grade 7.
And I'm Misha Malik from grade 7.
Welcome you all on the digital platform of Billabong Inspires talk series and virtual celebration of the special occasion of Independence Day.
BHIS strongly believes in the core values which inform your thoughts, decisions, and actions and help you align your career or life path to what's important to you. They are the essential foundation in finding your life purpose because they remind us and others who we truly are. BHIS core values are diligence, service, compassion, resourcefulness, commitment, and integrity.
We celebrate Independence Day with lots of enthusiasm and joy every year because India got freedom on this day in 1947 from the British rule. We are here to celebrate the 75th Independence Day.
Our freedom fighters gifted us this special day, which entails a lot of responsibilities and duties. Today we are free and our own masters because of all great Indian freedom fighters and leaders who struggled hard for many years to get freedom from the British rule.
Independence Day is celebrated all over India with great patriotism. Independence Day is a very important day for all Indian citizens as it gives us the opportunity to remember all those freedom fighters who had sacrificed their lives to give us a safe and independent life.
The National Pledge is an oath of allegiance to the Republic of India. Indian Pledge is an oath that we take while we live in this country. It reminds us of our responsibility towards our country and motherland.
Let's start this day with the Indian Pledge by students of grade 1 to 4.
India is my country. All Indians are my brother and sister. I love my country and I am proud of its rich and varied heritage. I shall always strive to be worthy of it.
I shall give my parents, teachers, and all elders respect and treat everyone with courtesy. To my country and my people, I pledge my devotion In their well being and prosperity alone lies my happiness.
Thank you, everyone.
Billabong Inspires Talk series is all geared up today for an interesting and enlightening session with our speaker, Mr. Vikramjeet Singh Rooprai, who will throw light on why was freedom needed and how we got it.
Mr. Vikramjeet Singh Rooprai is an educationist trying to redefine the education system and encourage the use of lessons learned from history in daily teaching. He is better known as the founder of India's largest heritage hobby club, the Heritage Photography Club, and Youth for Heritage Foundation.
Vikramjeet started his career as a digital marketing consultant and later turned into an educationalist. His first book, Delhi Heritage Top 10 Baulis, dedicated to the stepwells of Delhi, is published by Nayogi Books.
We would now like to welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Vikramjeet Singh Rooprai.
Thank you students, and thank you Billabong for having me here. A very good morning to everyone and happy Independence Day. Okay, so we are celebrating Independence Day. India has been free since 1947, but the journey was not easy. And now it has been almost, roughly 2 years that we have been sitting inside our homes, or at least more than 1.5 years. So we know how important it is to be free, to be able to roam around, to go wherever we want, right? So, okay, acha, beach mein you'll see me turning my face on the other side because my main screen is not working. So I'm using a separate screen so I can see everybody over here, but my camera is over here. So please don't mind that. How about you guys quickly type in chat that when I say freedom or when I say independence, what does it mean for you? I'll wait for a minute. You can quickly type and tell me what is freedom. Who's gonna do it? To be free, आजादी. आजादी हर चीज से आजादी, मतलब कोई रोक टोक नहीं, कोई कुछ कहने वाला नहीं, मैं जो चाहे कर सकता हूं, right? Master of our own lives, no one to rule. Brilliant. Which means if I am angry on someone and I want to hit someone, I can go and I can hit that person. If I want to burn a building, I can burn that building also. Is that what freedom is? Or, now I get so many no's. So freedom means, yes, we are able to rule, we are able to take decisions for ourselves, but then that also comes with a lot of conditions, wherein a proper administration is required, a proper government is required. So India, when we say got independence, it was not an easy journey. Had there been an independence without any governing body, without any group that could come and manage things, it would have been a disaster. So how did we reach that stage where we needed freedom? And before that, when we fought for freedom, we fought with the British. Mughals were ruling before the British, and before the Mughals, we had Lodhis and Tughlaqs and Khiljis and Mamluks and whatnot. We never fought for freedom against them. I mean, those who are interested in history, they would, if you want to study, you can study and you'll see that whenever a king would attack another kingdom, be it the Rajput, be it the Marathas, be it the Chalukyas, be it the Mughals, any king would attack any other kingdom, the other kingdom would fight the king, the soldiers, sometimes the people also. And once the war was over, everything was settled. Nobody would continue the fight and everybody would start living peacefully. It was only when the British came, the war started after several years, and then it continued until every single British was out of this country. So what exactly happened and why did we had to fight against the British? Well, the answer is slightly complex, but I'll try to make it easy. So hear me out. this is what happened. A man walks into the Mughal court and says, Your Highness, the Emperor, I come from a land called Britain, and I want to buy something from your country. And I will purchase that. I will take it back to my country. I will sell it there. I'll get a lot of profit, which means I'll have more money. I'll come back. I'll buy more stuff from here at higher cost. I'll take it back and I'll sell it there. And Emperor was like, well, yeah, that's good. You don't even have to ask me for that. Go ahead, buy whatever you want to buy. It's an open market. Or even if it is not open market, I'll make sure that you are not bothered. Just buy whatever you want and sell, because it's good for my people. My people are producing some stuff and they want to sell it. So this man says, thank you, my lord, but there is one little problem. The problem is that people from Portugal, people from Spain, people from Netherlands, people from France, they are already here. They are already buying stuff from all the ports that you have, and I come by ship. So if I come by ship, where would my ship land? Because at all the ports, already Portuguese and French ships are docked and they are buying everything. So can you do me a little favor? Can you give me some ports where only I can buy or sell? Emperor was like, okay, we can look into that, but at least for till that time, I can do one thing for you. And that one thing is that wherever you come, nobody will bother you. Be it Indian, be it foreigner, be it Portuguese or French or one of the Mughal ports, nobody will bother you. You can come. We will give you protection also if required. And you can buy whatever you want to buy. Perfect. That's going good now. Now the British are coming. They are buying stuff. They're selling it in Europe. Everything is going good. And then one day the British goes to one of the small Jagirdars or a local king and he says, I can see that you are producing a lot of cotton and I need cotton in my country. I need lots and lots of cotton. Whatever cotton you have, I'll buy everything. Now this person who has got so many hundreds of farmers under him and they're all producing cotton, they get very happy because earlier they had to take all their stuff to market and wait for someone to come and buy. Someone would buy half the lot. Sometimes, even half they will not able to sell. So a lot of problems were there. And now all of a sudden, one man says that I will buy everything, no matter what. It's actually a good thing for their trade. So they said, yes, okay, fine, you can buy everything. So the British said, okay, but you have to make sign an agreement with me that you will only sell it to me and no one else. So the king said, yeah, fine, why not? I mean, I am getting more money than anyone else and I'm getting a guarantee that all my produce is getting sold. I'm happy to sell it to you. I don't have to sell it to anyone else. It's okay. Perfect. Now here comes the catch. If everything has to be sold to the British, what happens if the people who are growing it, they need to use it? So let's say I'm producing a lot of rice. Now I also want to eat rice, but the rice that is there in my field, as per the agreement, it belongs to the British. I cannot consume it. So if I need it, I will have to take permission from British. So the British said, okay, you also want rice, but whatever rice is there in your field, that belongs to us. So if you want, you have to buy it from us. So the rice, wheat, cotton, pepper, whatever we were producing was being taken away by the British, and then for our own consumption, we had to buy it back at a much higher price. That is when the people realized that, oh, this has been a disaster. We didn't realize that it will reach to this stage. Now what do? We are bound by this agreement. And if we deny or if we go against the agreement, they can attack us. They can bring army because it is a legal document. What do we do? What do we do? Slowly, people started revolting. Slowly, people started objecting. They started going to the British officers and saying, no, you cannot do this, but they were not ready to listen. Several years passed like that. And then some people thought, okay, enough is enough. Now we cannot tolerate this. We will not give anything to the British. by this time, the British already had established, or the East India Company at that time had already established a small army, which they said that these are just security guards for our factories. But that army actually came and started attacking villages, those who would refuse. The kings, when the kings tried to refuse, what happened? The East India Company gave a lot of money to their soldiers and their army chiefs and many people within their court. And these people sided with the British. So what East India Company did, they gave money to those people who could help them and turned them against their own people. That's what we call the divide and rule policy of the British. Slowly things went forward and situation was so tough that almost entire India was now under the British. Because anyone who would go against them, British would wage war against them. They would bring in army and they had better weapons, they had better guns, which Indians were not having. India was an agricultural society. The best we had was swords, and then we also had some basic guns. But British came with much advanced navy, advanced guns, cannons, and we couldn't fight them. Even then, we have so many stories where the British were badly defeated. Had it not been for the money, because for centuries, or at least 1 century, if we don't pull it till many centuries, there was at least 1 century. And for these 100, 120 years, the British had earned so much money from India that now they could invest that money back and they could buy, they could bribe a lot of people. So that whole level of corruption caused a big problem. 1857, their own soldiers started a war against them. So there were many Indians who were working as soldiers in the British Indian Army. They started a war against their own officers, and that's what we call the mutiny. But within few weeks, that mutiny turned into the first war of independence. They all came to Delhi and they said that we will now fight against the British. We will no longer accept the British command. We are not reporting to the British flag or the crown. We will report to the Mughal emperor, who was Bahadur Shah Zafar at that time. That we will now report to Bahadur Shah Zafar, and Bahadur Shah Zafar, you are our emperor, you are the emperor of India, you lead us, and we will fight against the British. We will throw away these British because they have been torturing us, they have been exploiting us for 200 years now, and we cannot take it anymore. The emperor said, okay, yes, fine, but I'm very old. I don't have that power to stand up, pick up a sword and fight with you guys. I can't even get up from my bed on my own. I need a little bit of help for that also. Why don't you take my son and he will lead this army? Now the problem was that this son was never trained to be a war leader, to be a commander. So he had no idea what to do. The soldiers that were there, they said, "Arey, this boy, how can he lead us? We know more than him. We will manage." Now that's where the unity split. You know, there was a time when Marathas were very powerful. There was a time when Rajputana was very powerful. There was a time when Sikhs were very powerful. Ahoms in Assam, they were very powerful. But all these dynasties, they couldn't last long because they were not united. When the family grew, they had many people, all these, so if a king would have 5 sons, these sons would go into different directions, establish their own kingdoms. And then they would have sons, and then things continued. At one point in time, all these would start fighting. And that's where the problem started, because we were not united properly. It was very easy for the British to divide us, because the British would go to one king and say, you want to fight with your brother, we will give you money and we will give you weapons. And he was like, oh, wow, if you give me that, then I'll be more powerful than my brother. Then I can annex his kingdom also. And the British would go to the another king and say the same thing to him. You want to fight with your brother? We'll give you money, we'll give you weapons. And he was like, oh, wow. And only when they would come in front of each other in the battlefield, they would realize that we are using the same guns. So the British sold guns to everyone. And something of that sort happens even today. Sometimes, you know, many countries, they do that way. They work that way. So in India, what happened when the Indians, they decided to fight against the British, unity was a big problem. How many of you have heard that story where this old man brings his sons and he gives them a stick and he says, break these sticks, and they are all able to break it. But when he ties those sticks into one single bundle, they're not able to break it. Have you heard that story? You can raise your hand and let me know. I can see your faces. I can see the gestures if you raise your hand. Okay, great. You ever heard that story? So the moment you are united, nobody can break you. You are more powerful. And that is what we needed back then. We couldn't get it. 1857. People realized, yes, this is the problem. We need to unite. We need to be one. A little later, Mahatma Gandhi came in. And Gandhi said, do you even realize the only problem is unity? If you are united, if you are one, nobody can break you. And you are more powerful than anyone else. So everybody understood what he said and they united. And when they united, British were badly shaken. Mahatma Gandhi said, this unity is so powerful that we don't even need to fight with them. All we need to do is that whatever they give us, don't use it. Let's start non-cooperation. Let's not cooperate with them. Let's not use the clothes that they give us. Let's not use the food they give us. Let us not use the public utilities that they have created. So whatever the British were trying to implement in India, it was all the salt. They had a monopoly over salt. So Mahatma Gandhi did Namak Satyagraha. And within matter of few months, things started changing. Now British were scared. And now they knew that something bad is going to happen. So they tried many other tactics. They also brought in a bigger level of divide and rule. They tried to tell people, no, you are separate. You cannot be united. Hindus have to fight with Muslims. Muslims have to fight with Sikhs. You have always been fighting. They tried to tell us that. Many of us did not listen. Although, unfortunately, some of us did listen to the British. And again, the fighting started. But thankfully, a very big chunk was still against the British. And those who did listen to British, even they had one clarity in mind, that whatever we do, we have to fight against the British. And at that one point, still everybody was united. Instead of our differences, we were still ready to fight against the British. And eventually that day came when the British said, okay, enough is enough. We cannot take it anymore. We are going away. But it was time for the British to play one last trick. They said, first thing, we realize that you guys are not one, you are two different countries. Hindus are separate, Muslims are separate. And see, many of you are already saying this. So we will divide the country. Pakistan goes to the Muslims and Hindustan goes to the Hindus. People living in India opposed it. There was a small group of people, rather politicians, who raised that voice, who accepted it, but majority of Indians opposed it irrespective of religion. Still, the political party called All India Muslim League, they got a separate country, which we now know as Pakistan, which originally the word Pakistan, you know how this word comes in. So in 1933, there was a person called Chaudhry Rahmat Ali. He wrote a letter to few people who were meeting in London. They were half from India, some from Britain, and they were meeting to discuss the future of India. He said that there are many people living in certain areas and they are majority Muslims. These areas are Punjab, Afghan, which is the northwest frontier province area of Pakistan, Sindh, Kashmir, and Balochistan. In these areas, only Muslims are living. And the Punjab, we get P. Afghan, you get A. K comes from Kashmir. S comes from Sindh. And PAN comes from Balochistan. So that's how Pakistan came in. And just to make it, the pronunciation easy, later I was added, so it became Pakistan. Otherwise, it's Pakistan. So Pakistan word was coined in 1933 by Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, and that eventually became the name of the new country. Well, many people in India, irrespective of their religion, they said that this is wrong. It cannot be a Hindu country. India is a secular country. India is home to everyone. We all live like brothers and sisters over here. Right from Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to Mahatma Gandhi to anyone in the political lobby or outside a common citizen, that is what everybody said. And that's how we have been living since then. That's how we live even today. One, united as brothers and sisters. 1947 happened. India got independence. And now it was time to redefine India. When India got independence, there were small kingdoms. Entire India was full of princely states. That's how the British called them. They were small kingdoms. Like Jodhpur was a separate kingdom. Jaisalmer was a small kingdom. Small because I'm talking with respect to entire country. In their own sense, they were quite big. Udaipur was quite big country or kingdom at that time. Hyderabad was one of the biggest kingdoms, and Hyderabad said that after independence, we don't want to go to India. So I'm not talking about the city of Hyderabad. City of Hyderabad was the capital of the kingdom. That kingdom was also called Hyderabad. And it contained a large portion of Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, a little bit of Kerala also. So you can imagine how big that kingdom was. And they said, we are a separate country. Now just imagine you have the map of India, and within the map of India, in between, in the South India, you have a big circle, which is a separate country inside India. So that could have been a big problem. What Nizam of Hyderabad, the king of Hyderabad, did, he sent a letter to the queen, or at that time the king of England. So he sent a letter to the king and said that you make me a part of your Commonwealth. He also sent a letter to the United Nations and told them that we are an independent country called Hyderabad. Please recognize us and declare us a separate country. This is our flag. This is our logo. We have our own airline. We have our own electricity generation system. We have everything that you need. Everything is there in the country. We have our own railway system, postal system, currency. We have everything. We don't need any outside support. We will function as an independent country. So the government of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, VP Menon, these people, they went to Nizam of Hyderabad, or rather they approached him. They tried to convince him that no, what you are doing is wrong, because you will not be able to survive within a country. India is such a big country, and inside India, you have a separate country. That's not a good thing. He did not listen at first. For 1 year, there was sort of agreement that we will see what happens. And a year later, there was a war where Hyderabad started the attack, which later they said was just a mistake. They fired a cannon by mistake, but the war started. And as the war started, within just 2 days, India was able to capture Hyderabad because they did not have that strong army, the kind of army that India had. So Nizam said, okay, I understand. And that it was my chief minister who was doing all this. I was never in favor of having my country as a separate country. I'm happy to go with India. So India said, we still respect your decision, sir. Why don't you become the head of the state now? And this becomes a part of India. So Hyderabad became part of India, and the Nizam of Hyderabad became Raj Pramukh. At that time, there were Raj Pramukhs. There were 600 princely states. These states were merged into India, and that's how we get our modern map, present-day political map of India. And these states had Raj Pramukhs. So their kings became Raj Pramukh, and they stayed there for a few years until elections happened, and they all contested elections, and many of them won elections, and became chief ministers of those states. For example, in Rajasthan, we have Vasundhara Raje Scindia, who comes from the Scindia family of Gwalior. We have, she used to be the queen of, or rather still is the queen of Dholpur, the state of Dholpur. Now, all these are very well connected. The states that we have in present day India, Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, the union territories that we have now, then we have Punjab, Haryana, Himachal. Now, there was a time when Punjab, Haryana, Himachal were one state, but we had to divide them, and then we took Chandigarh also out. Delhi was also connected with Punjab. There were 3 different or 4 different states within Gujarat. There was no state called Gujarat. There was Saurashtra, there was Kutch, there was Junagadh, Porbandar. This is separate. So how did this modern map came into existence? We established a small committee. The State Reorganization Committee was established, and a language commission was established. The job of this commission was to identify the languages of India. Now we know that India had several languages. Even today, there has been one research where some scholars have found that India still has more than 800 languages, 800 distinct languages. So what these people did, they said that, okay, let us look at the broad language families, because between, within one language, you can have a lot of other languages which are more of dialects. So they realized that these are major cultural zones and these are major languages. So India was organized, or rather reorganized. The states were reorganized accordingly. Those states that are speaking Rajasthani style of Hindi, they will all be called Rajasthan. In Punjab, anyone who is speaking Hindi will now come to Haryana. Anyone who is speaking Punjabi will remain in Punjab. So Punjab was divided into these 2 parts, plus the hill areas of Punjab where they were speaking different languages, like the language of Kangra and Chamba. This is quite different from Punjabi, but they also have some overlapping words. So the hill areas were made separate. Similarly, from Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh was taken out, because Chhattisgarhi language and language of Madhya Pradesh is quite different. From Bihar, Jharkhand was taken out. From Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand was taken out, because in one area we speak Garhwali, in one area we speak Avdi, or Avdi style of, or Hindi with Avdi dialect. The language of Kanpur is very different from the language of Dehradun. So that's how states were reorganized. In South, we had 2 major states. One was Madras, one was Bombay. In 1950, these were actual states, not cities. So Madras was divided, Madras, Hyderabad, Bombay, and then Travancore, Cochin. They were all divided. The Malayalam speaking belt was called Kerala. Tamil speaking belt was called Tamil Nadu. Kannada speaking belt was called Karnataka. Telugu speaking belt became Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Marathi speaking belt became Maharashtra. Konkani belt became Goa, or the Portuguese are already ruling over there, so that stayed as a separate thing. So this is how these states were formed. Now I can continue with these stories, but what I also want to do is I want to connect with you guys, and I want to understand, like we started, what is freedom to you? Let me quickly reiterate one more thing, and then I'll come back to this question. And that one more thing is, there was a time when we were not able to even stand on our own, as in, if we want to walk through a place, and if the British has said that you cannot walk from the street, there is no way that you can cross that street. We still have the crawling street of Jallianwala Bagh or Amritsar. So right next to Jallianwala Bagh, outside Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar, there is a street which is called Crawling Street. What happened, and this is before the Jallianwala Bagh incident, what happened, there was this one English lady who was shot, who was killed over there, and the British officer became so angry, he said that nobody will walk on this street anymore. If you want to cross that street, because that was one of the prominent streets, the main market of Amritsar, which was next to Golden Temple, so one entire area could connect with this market only through that street. So everybody had to cross that street. Otherwise, you have to exit the city, go to the other side, enter from another gate, and then come in, which was a very long distance to be covered. So this was the main street which would bring you to market, and the Golden Temple and Jallianwala Bagh, which was the central area of Amritsar, it still is. And now the orders have been issued that you cannot walk on that street. You have to crawl. You have to get on your knees. You have to bend down and you have to crawl through that street. That was a punishment given to entire city just because one person went and killed a lady over there, a British lady over there. Now just imagine it's a long street and people who are living in those buildings, in those houses, when they open their door, they have to step out of their house. When you guys open your doors, you step out of your house very comfortably. You step out, you go, you play with your friends, or you go to school, or you go to market, you sit in your car, you drive long ways. All this is not allowed now. Someone comes in and says that you have to crawl. If you don't crawl, we will shoot you. So there are soldiers with guns standing in your street. And the moment you open your door, you have to get on your knees and just start crawling. Otherwise, you'll be shot. In many other areas, British installed their flags. The moment you're crossing in front of the flag, either you bow down, you salute, you remove your turban, you remove your cap. If you don't do it, you will be arrested and you will be punished. That's not fair, right? But that is exactly what was happening. We did not fight just because we want to be free. We fought because we want to be free from these kind of unfair things. We fought because we wanted to live like normal human beings without any fear. We fought because we wanted to consume the products that we were growing, what belonged to our land. We had the right to use it. That's why we fought. And then we realized the importance of freedom. We realized that they were able to rule us for so many years. For almost 3 centuries, we had the English presence. 1612, they came in. 1947, they went away. For all these 200, 300 years, one thing that dominated the Indians, because of which the British were able to rule, was corruption. So the unity factor is very big, but our unity was disturbed of 2 reasons. One big reason being the corruption, and second being that there were people amongst us who did not like each other, who just wanted to fight with each other. And then all of a sudden they're also getting money, they're also getting weapons. So their fight is getting better. So unity, corruption. These 2 things destroyed India for centuries. Do you think we still have the problem of unity or the problem of corruption? How many of you, let's go one by one. Let's start with corruption. How many of you think that we have the problem of corruption in India? Achha, how many of you know what is corruption? Hands down. First, raise your hand if you know what is corruption. I can see 1, 2 hands up, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out of 137, I can see what? Some 10 or 12 hands up. That's it. So if others don't know what is corruption, then let me give you a quick idea of what corruption is. Misuse of power of authority is what Krishan is saying. Well, misuse happens, but corruption means I want to get something done, and there is a person who is in charge who will get that thing done. I'll just walk to that person and I'll say, if you help me, I'll give you some sort of benefit. That benefit could be money, that benefit could be a gift, that benefit could be something I do for you. But you have to help me. You have to do it for me. And you don't have to do it for others, maybe. So this person will accept. It's a bribe. That person will accept that bribe and do it for you. Do that work for you. For example, let's say you're standing on a red light. Light is about to turn green, but you are not waiting for it to turn green and you just jump the light. And a policeman stops you. and the policeman says that you have jumped the red light and it is an offense. So you will be fined. Fine is 2,000 rupees. And then you say, sir, don't take 2,000 rupees from me, take 100 rupees from me. And the 2,000 rupees that you will take, you will have to submit it in the police station when you go back to your office today. And you have to give everything to the government. How about I give you 100 rupees and you keep it for yourself? Don't give it to anyone else. Now those 2,000 rupees is not going to the police officer, but this 100 rupees is going to the police officer. So that's his personal gain. So he would say, yeah, okay, why not? I'll take this 100 rupees. I'll get rich. I don't care about others. And you're free. You're free to go. That's corruption. Corruption happens at many levels. Corruption happens when you go to your parents and say, Papa, if you give me this thing, I'll be a nice boy. I'll be a nice girl for next 1 week. You're trying to bribe your father. You're trying to bribe your mother. It goes other ways around also. Sometimes parents also do that. We also bribe. I don't put that completely under corruption, but I mean, because corruption is a big thing, but somewhere we start with these kind of small things, and then we think that this is a normal thing. And we can do anywhere we want to. I'll give someone some benefit and then I'll get some reward for it. I don't care about others. That's where the corruption starts. And when it goes very big, that's where the problem starts. It's at a very small scale, it may not seem as a problem. It is not a problem. If you're doing it in your home with your parents, it won't be a problem. But please don't make it a habit and don't take it out of your home. Don't take it to a level where it destroys the country. So now you understand what corruption is. Let's talk about unity. How many of you know what unity is? So Prashant is saying working together, not just working together, rather cooperating, rather being with each other. More importantly, not fighting with each other on stupid issues. Just because I don't like you doesn't mean I have to fight with you. If I don't like you, you can walk your own path. I can walk my own path. I will not bother you. You will not bother me. But wherever required, we will stand together. When it becomes matter of the nation, we will stand together. We will probably fight together if required. But we will not fight with each other to a level that a person from outside comes and tries to destroy us or exploit us. You know that story of monkey and cats? So two cats got a roti and now they wanted to divide it. And they were not able to divide it properly. So they gave it to a monkey and they said, why don't you divide it amongst us? So what the monkey did, he just tore it off and gave it to both of them. But it was not a proper division. So one cat said, it's not divided properly. He said, oh, okay, you got a bigger piece. I'll break a little bit from you. I'll eat it. Now it is equal. The other said, no. Now the guy from whom this monkey took, he said, no, now mine is smaller. So he said, okay, I'll break from the other one. Now it will be equal. But then he broke too much. The other one said, no, you have taken more bread from me. Now I'm at loss. That happened. And the monkey ate all of the roti, all of the bread. And both cats were hungry. This is what happens when you fight with each other, when you are not able to solve your problem and you have to invite someone from outside to help you. That man might take all the benefit and nothing will be left for you. So let's not fight with each other. Let's stay united. Let's work for this country. I told you how difficult the situation was for our countrymen before 1947. Yes, we fought for it. We fought very hard. We got that freedom. And now it is a responsibility of the generation that is there right now, you and me, to honor that value, to honor that freedom. All right, I'll rest my speech here and I'll move to you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to type in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer. If you have any comments, you can type it out and we'll continue our discussion accordingly.
Thank you,
Any
sir,
questions?
thank you, sir, for the stimulating speech, which was indeed revelation. I'm sure everyone must have been amazed to know why was freedom needed and how we got it.
Thank you, sir. Now it is time for some fun element. It's quiz time. Students will get 10 seconds each for each question, and they are requested to write their answers in the chat box.
The first question is, when did India become an independent country?
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The correct answer is option A, 1947, given by Krishan Jacodia.
The next question is, which leader was known as Netaji? And the options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
and the correct answer is Subhash Chandra Bose, given by Vidita Khandelwal.
The next question is, on Independence Day, the Prime Minister of India hoists a tricolor flag at, your options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And the correct answer is Red Fort, Delhi, given by Shuk Mehrotra.
The next question is, the first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru raised the Indian national flag on 15th August 1947. Which of the following gates of the Red Fort? And the options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And the correct answer will be Lahori Gate, given by Vikhyat Singh Yadav.
The next question is, who wrote this slogan? Self-rule is my birthright and I shall have it. Your options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The correct answer is Bal Gangadhar Tilak.
Next question is, who will raise the flag during National Level Independence Day function in 2021 at Red Fort? And the options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And the answer is Narendra Modi, given by Pankhuri Goyal.
The next question is, तुम मुझको खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा, was said by which of the following persons?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The correct answer is Subhash Chandra Bose, option C, given by Raghav Agarwal.
The next question is, which of the following financial institution bank was founded by Lala Lajpat Rai? And the options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
the answer is Punjab National Bank, given by Vidita Khandelwal.
The next question is, the patriotic poem Sarfaroshi Ki Tamanna was written by, and your options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The correct answer is Ram Prasad Bismil.
The next question is, when was Quit India movement started? The options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The correct answer is option C, 1942, given by Shubh Mehrotra.
The next question is, in which year was New Delhi made capital of India? And your options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And the correct answer is option B, 13 February.
The next question is, which was the first European country to start trade with India first? And the options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
the correct answer is C, Portugal, given by Pankhuri Goyal.
The next question is, who designed our national flag? And your options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
the correct answer is option D, Pingali Venkaya, given by Vidita Khandelwal.
The next question is, who is known as the Iron Man of India? And the options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And the correct answer is option B, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, given by Raya Dadil.
The next question is, who wrote India's national anthem? And your options are
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The correct answer is Rabindranath Tagore, given by Krishan Jakodia. Congratulations to all the winners.
India is our country and we are its citizens. We should always be ready to safeguard it from any kind of danger. It is our responsibility to lead our country ahead to make India the best country in the world.
In the end, all that can be said is independence is priceless, and our soldiers are so brave that they are continuously fighting on the borders in order to protect our country from any enemy or terrorist group. So we should never fail to value this independence and preserve it wholeheartedly.
We should remember to carry on the work of building a strong nation bequeathed to us by our freedom fighters and promise to shoulder our responsibilities with sincerity and honesty.
As a community, let us also promise to hold up our school vision to ignite human greatness in growing children and pre-adults by fostering a love of learning, a talent for thinking, and respect for hard work.
And fulfill our school mission, aspiration over ambition, spirituality over religion, wisdom over knowledge, united world over divided one, and individual creative thought over robotics.
Now it's time to end the celebration with a power-packed group dance performance by students of grade 7.
ऐ वतन वतन मेरे आबाद रहे तू, ऐ वतन वतन मेरे आबाद रहे तू, ऐ वतन वतन मेरे आबाद रहे तू, मैं जहाँ रहूं जहाँ में याद रहे तू, मैं जहाँ रहूं जहाँ में याद रहे तू, ऐ वतन मेरे वतन, ऐ वतन मेरे वतन। यहाँ हर कदम कदम पे धरती बदले रंग, यहाँ की बोली में रंगोली सात रंग, धानी पगड़ी पहने मौसम है, नीली चादर ताने अंबर है, नदी सुनहरी हरा समंदर है रे सजीला, देश रंगीला रंगीला देश मेरा रंगीला, देश रंगीला रंगीला देश मेरा रंगीला, देश रंगीला रंगीला देश मेरा रंगीला, देश रंगीला रंगीला देश मेरा रंगीला।
कुछ करिए बस बस बड़ा बोल दे, अब कुछ करिए ओ कोई तो चल सिद्ध फड़िए, तू बेतरिए या मरिए, हाय कोई तो चल सिद्ध फड़िए, तू बेतरिए या मरिए, शक दे हो शक दे इंडिया, शक दे हो शक दे इंडिया, शक दे हो शक दे इंडिया, शक दे हो शक दे इंडिया।
हो मारे या कोई मारे ना, यहाँ अपनी भी थोड़ी अदा थोड़ा अंदाज है, ऐसे हैं चाहे वैसे हैं, अरे जो भी हैं जैसे हैं खुद पे हम नाज है, जाने ना हमको ये जमाना, चाहो तो हमको आजमाना, यारबाज हम चालसाज हम इश्कबाज दिल वाले, कहते हैं हमको प्यार से इंडिया वाले, छू लेते दिल के तार से इंडिया वाले, हर जीत जीत ले हार से इंडिया वाले, दुश्मन के छक्के छुड़ा दे हम इंडिया वाले, दुश्मन के छक्के छुड़ा दे हम इंडिया वाले। बहुत सारा जहां देख लिया, कहीं भी तेरे जैसा कोई नहीं है, 80 नहीं 100 दुनिया घुमा है, नहीं कहीं तेरे जैसा कोई नहीं, मैं गाया जहां भी बस तेरी याद थी, जो मेरे साथ मुझको तड़पा दिलाती, सबसे प्यारी तेरी सूरत, प्यार है बस तेरा प्यार ही, माँ तुझे सलाम, माँ तुझे सलाम, अम्मा तुझे सलाम, वंदे मातरम, वंदे मातरम।
लोगो देखो देखो छा गया है आकाश पर अब तिरंगा, भरे भरे मन गर्व से है लहरा गया जब तिरंगा। लोगो देखो देखो छा गया है आकाश पर अब तिरंगा। जननी तूने दिया है जीवन, तूने दिए आराम। जागे जागे हिंदुस्तां है और जागे जागे हिम्मत है, रास्ते हैं और कारवां है और मंजिलों की चाहत है। जागा जागा हिंदुस्तां है और जागी जागी हिम्मत है, रास्ते हैं और कारवां है और मंजिलों की चाहत है। जागा हिंदुस्तां। सुनो गौर से दुनिया वालों, बुरी नजर ना हम पे डालो, चाहे जितना जोर लगा लो, सबसे आगे होंगे हिंदुस्तानी।
सुनो गौर से दुनिया वालों, बुरी नजर ना हम पे डालो, चाहे जितना जोर लगा लो, सबसे आगे होंगे हिंदुस्तानी। हमने कहा है तुम भी कहो, हमने कहा है जो तुम भी कहो।
Wow, it was a very energetic performance. Thank you so much, everyone.
Our heartfelt gratitude to our founder and CEO, Mrs. Preeti Agarwal, for initiating such talks which kindles in us the curiosity to explore more. We convey our heartfelt gratitude to our guest speaker, Mr. Vikramjit Singh Roop Roy, for the dynamic talk.
Your feedbacks and suggestions are the most important to us for raising the bar all the time. WhatsApp class groups will remain open till 12:30 p.m. Parents and students are requested to share their feedbacks and suggestions in the class group as well.
Thank you so much, everyone, to be a part of this Billabong Inspires talk series and virtual celebration of the Independence Day.
We shall meet next week on 21st August 2021 at 4 p.m. with our next guest speaker, Dr. Isha Jaiswal. Happy
Independence Day. Thank you.